surrounded with fake love. I'm always a villain, but kings never seem to question. How can a king learn to rule himself?
Welcome to another edition of Shifting the Paradigm, and we have the esteemed pleasure here to have with us, joining us today, Marco Alexander, singer, songwriter, producer. I mean, you play classical instruments. You have your own clothing line, man. What is it that you don't do?
Play sports. I'm trash at sports.
Okay, so Sound Culture. It's the name of your clothing brand.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about how you got started and what was the influence to the actual print that you use in Sound Culture.
Okay. Sound Culture is a fairly new brand. I would say the apparel is fairly new, but we've been around for about 4 years. We started off as a streetwear line, which was strictly on runway. It was a strictly runway line, but then I started kind of dabbling in the painting situation, painting my own clothes, because I hated when people sent me clothes to perform in, because it did or did not fit my style. And and that's how we kind of got started with the print. The print was originally for my debut EP, Friction, but then once I started wearing it, everybody was like, yo, excuse me, are you selling this? Like, well, how can we get it? And it just turned into like a profitable thing for me to make money to record the music, to fund Sound Culture, to fund my life, that type of situation. So yeah, it's been working out, yeah.
All right, so Marco, what would you say is the greatest satisfaction that you receive from implementing Black or African cultural awareness into your fashion, your music, or just your own personal style?
Satisfaction. I definitely believe, nobody else can do this effectively. A lot of people can't do it effectively. You see a lot of people with just African print, trying to incorporate it in their dresses, their skirts, just doing every village wear. That's what I call it. Because when you go back to Africa, you see people doing oh my God, just wearing this every day. But what sets you apart from everybody else is what we focus on. And so when we create, we kind of have that in mind. Like, what's going to set you apart from everybody else? When you walk into a room, what's going to make the entire room turn around and be like, who is dude? You know what I'm saying? That's what sets us apart. And I think that's the greatest satisfaction when people put our clothes on. They're like, yo, I feel royal in this. Even if they, put on Bape or Louis Vuitton or Gucci, it's just like, yo. When they put our stuff on, it's like, yo, I feel stupid royal in this. Especially if you Black, just know who you are now. So yeah.
Hey, that is definitely a fact, because
yeah.
I feel royal every time I put it on. And I'm a big supporter.
I'm with it, yeah.
So the term back to the culture, what does that mean to you?
Back to the culture. All right, so the culture, the African culture or the Asian culture or whatever it is very strict. There are a lot of things that we're allowing to happen in American society and American culture that would normally be okay in African culture, you know what I'm saying? Wearing certain things, especially when I went back to Africa, they were telling us the significance of why men wear this and why women wear this and why it's not okay for men to wear this. I'm completely cool with people being, themselves, but I understand the one earring thing that I always do. I don't have it on today, but the one earring thing I always do, certain kings wear one earring that hangs from their face, and mine is very short, but you will see a lot of pictures with it all falling down here. It's just certain things like that, getting back to the culture, getting back to who you are, who you were meant to be, treating other people like their kings. I mean, it's just if they treat themselves like that, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Forcing the idea to respect yourself and respect where you come from, and the idea that people did a whole bunch and went through a whole bunch for you to get to where you are. And not necessarily living your life based on that, but at least respecting it, you know what I'm saying? So getting back to the culture, getting back to who we are, getting back to the power of who we are.
All right, peace, brother Marco.
What's good?
All right, man, so look, being a traditionally trained musician, right? I'm sure you had the pleasure of learning a little bit about classical, or a lot about classical instruments and African instruments, right?
Yeah.
So do you have a preference between the two? Do you have a preference, do you prefer to play classical instruments over African instruments, or do you see similarities a lot between the two?
I mean, well, that's a hard one, because I love playing classical music, and I definitely think that both have their advantages, right? However, African music is strictly based on what's passed down to you. They don't read Western notation, so if you put a sheet music in front of them, they're not gonna know what you're talking about. Everything that they pass down, you can't write. It's impossible to write, because the flexing of the notes, the way the notes bend, the way that we don't have a way to write that.
Wow.
Right. But European, the way we write music, Western notation, it's just a flat note. Whether if you put that in front of them or djembe, if it hits the drum, you're gonna hear like 5 different tones just based on how that drum was built. Opposed to if you hit a bass drum in Europe or America, you're gonna hear one tone. You know what that tone is, unless it's just tuned differently.
Gotcha.
So both have similarities in which they're made. I think American classical instruments are fine-tuned to a sense, some to a fault, but I don't think I have a preference.
I got you.
I think both of them hold weight in my life and you know, contribute to how I sound, like my overall sound, the sound of Marco Alexander. So classical music has definitely played a part in my life. It makes me pay attention to how things are executed uniform, like has to be done this way at a professional level, opposed to if I was just raised on the village life or the village sound of music, it would be just do you and we're gonna record.
So let me ask you something. Are instruments chosen, and traditional African instruments, are the people who play these instruments, are they chosen by their village on what instrument to play?
So yes,
or how does that work?
Some instruments like the kora, which is I don't know if you've seen it. It's a round gourd with a long stem coming up the top.
Yeah.
In Mali, and they hold it like this, and they have to play it. You're chosen to play that instrument. If you go and you pick it up, you won't know how to do it. You won't know where to start unless the village chooses you. When you're born, you have to be chosen to play that particular instrument. Now, if your family already plays it, you already clearly know you're chosen to play it.
Yeah.
That's you.
Right.
But like the balafon, all those types of things, the djembe, some of those you can pick up and just learn how to play.
Gotcha.
But most of the time, you know if you're chosen to do it by if your family is already acclimated in that community,
right.
Or if they're not and you just gravitate towards it, then you can of course, you know, try to learn it. But yeah, most of these instruments you're chosen to play. Now you can learn it if you want to, yes, but it won't tell a story. Like you're not chosen to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So we won't feel anything when you play it. It'll just be you playing.
I got
Yeah.
you. So look, I'm gonna jump back to the prints, right? The sound culture print, right? And I noticed that one of the big things, concept that you are bringing to the people is the merger of African culture with American culture, or just kind of comparing the two, right? And getting people's perspective to go back home, right? So, you know, of course, during slavery, you know, that knowledge was very desperately tried to be stripped from us. And a lot of times, a lot of cases it was, but some things survived. So where I'm getting at is, do you see any similarities between traditional African prints and some of the like freedom quilts and stuff that was done during slavery, or any American prints that you have studied or come across or learned about?
Okay. So
Black American prints.
yeah, I mean, definitely the slave quotes and the American African prints that we see now, like you have to watch because some of those just clearly say made in India or made in China. It's not made in Africa. So I mean, let's just be all the way clear.
Right.
But all of these prints and all of these textiles, I think, come from Africa. Like the lines, even the polka dots, you know what I'm saying? That just, it all comes from the designing of like mud cloth or bazin or any like African fabric that you deal with. But I definitely believe that people who create textiles nowadays have to go back to study the culture before they can create textiles, because you won't know what you're creating. It has to tell a story. The slave quilts, each patch means something. It could be a patch from every tribe in Africa, and you can just be walking around holding a quilt that stands for the entire continent, and you think you're only representing West Africa. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But we got to remember, in slavery, all these tribes were put together. You know what I'm saying? It's just like America. All these tribes are put together, and so we end up creating our own textiles that mean completely different things, which is where you get this from. You know what I'm saying? The friction textile. Which is basically like every figure, as you can see, you can get out of. It's just like everything that's happening around you, unless you get to a circle or a square. The wrong circle can get you trapped. You know what I'm saying? So every situation in life, no matter where you go, everything's gonna be happening around you. It's up to you to stay the path, you know what I'm saying? To stay the path, and sometimes you may go completely against somebody else's beliefs, but you'll be good, you know what I'm saying? If you just stick to your dreams, stick to your vision. You know?
So, Marco, when it comes to your music, you're a singer, songwriter, producer, composer. You play classical instruments. Where does that love for music come from?
My parents. I definitely come from a musical family. I can definitely say that. Sometimes, again, to a fault, because no matter what I'm creating, you always have my mother or my father like, I don't know if you should do that. Like, this upcoming album is the first time they're gonna hear me curse. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's also the first time that I've recorded a full album as an adult. And so it's like, you know, coming up in an African household or any household, period, you don't curse in front of your parents. It's
Right.
just, you know what I'm saying? A black family, period. You may end up on a wall hanging somewhere, you know what I'm saying? They know you curse, but it's just like, yeah, it is what it is. But the level of which I create, I definitely think comes from my family. You know, I got gospel people in my family. I got people who played in the Stax era, from Stax, you know what I'm saying? Andrew Love of the Memphis Horns is in my family. He passed away, but him and Wayne, all these people influenced my life. And so as I was coming up, I was seeing these people work in these different industries, and I was wondering, how are you doing this? Like, how are you making a living creating music? And I got dancers in my family. How are you making a living dancing? Like, I grew up around like lawyers and stuff. I was told you got to be a doctor, you got to be an accountant, you got to do this. And so creating music was always something I wanted to do, but I knew I had to do it at a very, very high level and do something that black people weren't doing, which is kind of infiltrating the classical world, because it's ours. I mean, classical music is ours. Think about it. Like, it comes from West African melodies. That's in history books. And so you got to think about it that way. Don't just give your stuff away. Go back and claim it. If you got to learn another instrument to do it, so what? You just do it. You know what I'm saying? So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I was doing some researching up on you. I hope you don't mind. I was Googling
Okay.
Marco Alexander. You know, of course, you know, athletes came up and, you know,
Yeah.
but I read, man, that you actually achieved or earned your bachelor's degree in music education and music performance from University of Memphis.
I did, yes.
And I also read that you've performed with more than 23 orchestras nationwide.
Yeah.
And you've went on soundtrack tours with Disney and Nintendo.
And Nintendo, yeah.
So what was that like?
Man, listen, a lot of this stuff happens, you get picked up from certain gigs. You know what I'm saying? Like the Nintendo thing, I got called down to the Orpheum while I was here. I think I was still in college, to do a Legends of Zelda show. At that time, they were just picking up musicians to every city they went to. And so it's just like, we pick you up, you do the concert, we're done. It's a contract, whatever. We deal with contracts all the time. But at this particular concert, they were missing a bass player from the next city. So I was like, they were like, can you come to Nashville with us? And at that time, I was gonna be missing class to go to Nashville. I didn't care, it's a job, yo, like I don't, whatever. And so I went to Nashville with them. And then they started this whole entire thing where they were saying the next tour, we're taking principal musicians with us to every city in North America. And I was like, yo, I gotta be on that. I have to be on that. Even if I miss school, I gotta be on it, because it's like school is preparing you to do this, you know what I'm saying? And so from that, I didn't finish that tour. I think I went on half of it, and then got picked up as a sub for the Lion King. And so I was like, yo, okay, go back to the Orpheum. Let's do this Lion King show really quick. But then the guy who was playing bass for it, his wife was pregnant. And so he was like, I gotta dip out for a minute. Of course he didn't say dip out, being a white guy, but he was like, I gotta dip out for a minute. Would you mind taking over? Because you're a strong player, let's just do it. I was like, cool, let's do it. So that's how all that became. The 23 orchestras came from my teacher, John Chiego, just kind of putting my name out there, and yeah.
So you studied under him at University of Memphis?
I studied under him, and after I left, he became the president of the music school.
Wow.
And now he just recently retired. And so, yeah, I studied under him. Yeah.
All right, so towards the end of last year, I remember you took a trip to Africa.
I did, yes.
You recorded music, actually purchased some land out there.
Yeah.
So just tell me a little bit about
So
that.
I initially went to Africa the beginning of this year, actually, last December, beginning of this year, January. So I came back in February. And I wanted to initially go just to kind of engulf myself in the culture, just learn. I didn't want to go being an artist. I didn't want to go being like the person who was taking and not giving. Okay. So I went, did a lot of things, gave away a couple of shoes that I painted, a few jackets. I took a lot of Back to the Culture jackets over there and ended up giving them away. Okay. But then I wanted to be a tourist for the first 2 weeks. And the last 3 weeks, I knew I wanted to study. So go to different cultural centers, go to different villages, and just see how things were built, how things were made, how bantabas were built, which is basically a gathering of people dancing and drumming. And just kind of engulf myself in the culture, and it ended up being, they found that I could sing. They found that I was an artist, because just like you, they started doing research, and I'm just like, man, okay.
Here we go.
Eventually I started getting calls to these studios just to listen to things. And then one guy was really brave, and he was like, "Go jump on the mic," and I'm just like, "No," like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we don't work the same way y'all do legally over here. So I'm pretty positive you're not gonna copyright this. You're not gonna do anything. But I thought that was the beauty of it, like, to not have to worry about all this paperwork and all this, who owns this and who owns what. Just create, and you can worry about that later. And so this voice inside of my head was like, just do it, just do it. And so I ended up recording with him that night, and then later found out that he is one of the top artists in Dakar, Senegal.
Wow.
And so later this year, I ended up going back to New York to record the video with him in New York, and then flew to LA to record the second half of the video with him. Got a chance to meet Chris Brown and Jason Derulo and all these people who are on the album as well.
Wow.
But also just did a bunch of other, collabs while I was in Dakar. And ended up, talking to labels. They want to build a sound culture store out there, all of that. And so I met this one guy, and he was telling me, yo, you need to buy land. No matter what you do out here, you need to purchase a piece of land. Even if you just end up financing it, you just, whatever. And so I started financing a piece of land near Akon City, where Akon City is being built now.
Wow.
And recently, I paid it off. And when I go back, I was supposed to go back this month, but of course, COVID. But when I go back, I get to check on that, see about something being built on that land, or if I want to sell it, it just depends. I own it, it's mine. It's just very important to kind of own land, especially where you're from. You know what I'm saying? Where your people are from, because you own that. In Africa, I mean, they welcome people of other cultures to buy property and land, but they really want to keep it us.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So it's important. Ghana, Dakar, Senegal, all those places. It's just very, very important to buy land there. Now, some countries may be opposed to Black America buying anything, just because of who they think we are. But that's why I said it's important to always go with the notion of give, don't take.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Go learn, don't take. Until somebody's handing you something, then it's just disrespectful not to take it.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay, man.
Yeah.
Well, look, Marco, man, we greatly appreciate you for your time.
No problem, man.
And just
I
all of
appreciate
the information and knowledge you have given us today. Just more about you, your clothing brand, your music. And man, we just want you to keep shining, just keep doing great things.
Of course.
In the city of Memphis and all
Mhm.
over the world, because man, you are an inspiration. And hopefully somebody will definitely watch this video and say, hey man, I'm gonna strive to be like that.
Hit me up. Let's go. Let's go. I got you. Indeed.
Peace.
All right, it's Marco Alexander, international pop recording artist and owner of the Sound Culture brand. You can find me on Instagram at Sound Culture, that's with a K, Sound Culture. Or my Instagram, Marco Alexander Official, Marco Alexander Official, all one word. I will be back on Facebook soon as Marco Alexander, no worries. And on Twitter, Marco A Official. So just hit us up, Sound Culture, if you want to order some fly, just get at us. The website is www.thesoundculturebrand.com. So check us out.
See what it all can reveal. It all reveals when you step into the unknown. You weigh your options to lead the psychological beings. The time is passing.